I learned about invasive species when I would go to my friend's cabin in Lake of the Woods, which was in another province in Ontario, not Manitoba. And there was all these signs about these things that are on the bottom of boats. You had to get rid of them because if they came into the waters of Manitoba, it would decimate it. The waterfowl. I can't remember what they're called. These little kind of things that attach to the bottom of the boat, but it was an invasive species. Oh, and I was talking last week about the poker business and how that business was kind of ruined. Zebra mussels, that's right, yeah. That was ruined by invasive species too. And what I mean by that is that the industry itself, which was motor inns, and what that means is that these hotels are attached to a vendor and they have a casino and et cetera, et cetera. But they were generational businesses that were handed down from like the dad to the son to the son to the son, et cetera, for like the past 100 years. And they're all in heritage buildings and you couldn't really do anything to them. They're kind of grandfathered in, so to speak. And then what happened is that the most invasive species of all is the government. So the government came in. Now, they're the worst invasive species because they have no clue what's going on within the industry or the business that they're now ruining. So they changed the rules, and so some of these families decided it's time to get out. You can't really compete with this invasive species coming in, like the government coming with all these handcuffs, and you got to pay this, you got to pay that. These rent seekers, and it opened it up into outsiders who weren't part of the building of that industry, the 100 years, the maintaining of the heritage buildings. They bought them from these old families, and they immediately changed everything about them, and somehow including the heritage status. So these invasive species in concert with each other kind of decimated that industry that was once like the backbone of kind of the entertainment industry in the city, so to speak. Now these bars are essentially just VLTs, like just video lottery terminals. So they're like little gambling holes, and they have muffin buffs and stuff like that. But why Bitcoin is what I learned about that, and why Bitcoin is worthless is that every time I start going down the road of, like first off, Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin, right? But we get carried away sometimes with the price action. What's it doing? Why is it going there? Why isn't it doing this? How come this happened? Hey, Michael Saylor bought. Why is it dumping? It hasn't dumped yet, actually. I was expecting a big dump because of Michael Saylor. But I always forget what happens to these invasive species techniques when it comes to the business aspect. Heads up, the anchored text tool will be removed soon. What anchored text tool? What's going on here? What are you even talking about? Get rid of it. There we go. And what the techniques of these invasive species into an industry they don't know is to give the perceived value of zero, right? So I remember that story last week. It's like the guy went to this yard sale, and the first thing he did was offer an enormous amount for something with limited value. Like if we were to maybe correlate to something, how about Trump's meme coin, right? He offered this meme coin and the value went through the roof for a second, right? And it gets the existing people within the industry a little bit excited. It's a little, number go up technology. But this fellow that went to this yard sale was agreeing to buy everything for an enormous sum. I'll give you this much money for this much money. And then she's like, well, I'm trying to sell this armoire. He's like, I don't want the armoire. No, nobody wants armoires. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, what about this teacup set? It's like, yes. How much do you want for it? $10. I'll pay 20. And so now the industry is kind of being seduced by this fake money that hasn't been realized yet. She always comes back to I would like to get rid of this armoire. This is kind of the whole yard sale is about this armoire, and everything else is just, thanks for taking it, and I appreciate the offers. No, I don't want the armoire. It's nobody wants armoires. Armoires are worthless. They have no value. And then when he comes to the end of his interaction with the said seller, he's like, so I owe you, $1,500. But I obviously don't have $1,500 right now, so I'll go back and get it. And in lieu, just to give you, some goodwill, I'll take the armoire. I know you want 100, but I'll give you 5, just, so we know we're on the up and up, and then I'll come back with the 1,500 for all the other stuff. She's like, yeah, okay, well, nobody wants an armoire. I guess I'll sell it for $5. That's better than, not being able to sell it. And then, of course, all he ever wanted was the armoire, and he never comes back for any of the worthless stuff like the Trump coins or the Pepe or the Bonks, or you know what I mean. There's a lot of worthless stuff that had perceived value when he was throwing fake money around. But really, all he ever wanted was that armoire. And part of that invasive species business plan is to come into an already existing healthy ecosystem and pervert it and make the people within it think that what they have is worthless. And all it takes is a little bit of repetition, by certain media platforms, and you start thinking, well, maybe it is worthless. Maybe I wasn't. If nobody wants it, or no, everybody's selling. Oh, okay. And you start almost believing the hype. But this is a century-old business practice that we see now. And what's happening? Who's the biggest invasive species into the Bitcoin industry? Well, it is the government. The government has come in as an invasive species, an alien to this industry, and started throwing around perceived money at the industry. Oh, well, we're going to do this. We're going to get a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's I can't believe it. That's so great. This is good news. And we're going to have a completely Bitcoin-friendly administration. Oh my God, that's even better. Things just can't even get. I just can't imagine as the price goes down, and then all of a sudden the price keeps going down. But you said, well, what about? I thought we were agreed to how great this is, but the price is going down, and then the perceived value of this asset is starting to F with your mind because of the number go down or sideways technology, when really the value proposition has not changed, but it's only been invaded by an outside source trying to convince you that it has no value. This is centuries old, this tactic. It goes on 2,000 years, you might say it's been going on. And now we're seeing it with the invasive species of the government coming in, trying to convince everyone. What are they doing? All you see is the Trump family, buying Bitcoin, getting into it on the back end, and perpetuating it. However, the price is going down, convincing the sellers, The poor lady with the armoire who just, sees value in her armoire, getting pounded into her head that there's no value in this armoire. But listen, I'll take it. I'll take it off your hands for, I know you wanted, I know you value it as almost infinite. Like there's no, like, if we're going to put a number to it, like something in the millions of dollars. But listen, I'll give you 68.5, and that's just me being nice because we all know it's going way lower, right? So might as well get it off your hands for 68.5, James. And that's right. Only criminals use armoires. Armoires. Am I saying that right? An armoire? This is like those, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Isn't an armoire like a wardrobe type thing? I don't know. Anyway, that's why Bitcoin has no value. It's because you're trying to get convinced that it has no value. Now, Guanyato Excavating LLC, you're right. The price could go down. And I actually think it probably will go down. We still have 6 months in this bear market, the cyclical aspect of this business cycle outside of invasive species. It has its life of its own. Just like those hotels, it wasn't constant boom, but the industry itself worked together. There was an abundance within each business owner. They were set up in certain areas of the city that it helped everybody. There was no, what they do now, like you'll see what is that? What's that coffee shop? Starbucks. You'll see a Starbucks pop up, and then in this type of competitive business regime we're in, the new practice is, well, we'll just set up right next door, right? And the studies say, if they're more in the one area, well, they never did that. These motor inn hotels, they kept them in a certain vicinity, so everyone had enough to go around. And so here we are, 6 months left in this bear market, so to speak. Now I was starting to think that there is a certain degree or a certain probability that October may be a little late for the bottom coming in for a couple of reasons. One, everything's a little advanced, but I also think time's moving faster. I think it may just be me, but it's like it's Monday morning now. Next thing I know, it'll be Sunday. Because you have your regimented week. I know what I'm doing most of the day. Monday Duke has wrestling, Tuesday is jiu-jitsu, Wednesday we play squash, Thursday's kind of a nothing day, and then Friday, Saturday playing at the piano bar, and then it's Sunday, and then it's Monday, and it's so fast. So like, my dad's actually on vacation for like, I think it was 2 months, and I remember when he was leaving, I was like, man, you're gonna be back just like that. Sure enough, he's like back this week. It's just how he had a whole vacation, a whole time. And now he's back. It feels like he was gone for a week. Now, I would have liked to see this candle here maybe close at about 67.3. We would have got that bonafide. Bonafide? Well, I know a guy named Peter Boda, and his business is called Bonafide, but it's bonafide. Bonafide, bullish engulfing candle, but this is pretty. This is a bullish candle. It's a 4-hour chart, so who really cares what the 4-hour chart's saying? But it does infer a high probability of a bottom for now in this downward progression, which has been happening since we hit our rejection zone to a T. Why is this getting connected? 74.5. Well, we're gone about we're off $350. To me, that's a hell of a probability coming into play here. Next stop, we'll get rejection at this 50 moving average, 68.7. Looks like we almost did. I'd like to get over that, because once we get over that, it's really almost smooth sailing back to this old 61.8 at 69.9. Let's just call it 70K. If we open bullish. Now, it's a weird time because there's so much chaos going on in this world that it's hard to really pinpoint what anything is going to do. Now, would de-escalation pump? Maybe. But it's the takeaway of this past cycle that we are almost in an inverted scenario for a long time. Usually, in a bull market, it's like thinking of all these correlations that these idiots on the news will say, or other influencers, they got caught up in the correlation charts. Well, if this happens, this happens. And if this happens, this happens. And the only correlation that exists is if X happens in a bull cycle, the price will go up correlated to X. But when we're in a bear cycle, when we're heading into the little rounding bottom of a winter, X that used to be correlated with something in the bull cycle is now not correlated. So all these charts, just throw them out. These new correlation charts. It's just silly. It's just silly. You have to know where you are in the cycle and then alleviate all the correlations they're all just kind of feel good cope, right? Oh, look at this chart. When this chart goes up, this means this. In a bull market, but everything in a bull market means this goes up. And everything in a bear market means it's going to go down even if it's correlated. Now, can we put this as a lower high? Yeah. Yeah, that's bullish too. It's a nice little let's see if we get even more here. Yeah, well, we should maybe even extend this out. And where would that make us? Yeah, 69.9. 61.8% fib. Now, I don't want to jump the gun on these rejection zones, but if we were to pull another one from this one here, wrong way. Well, it's invert 6. The interesting thing about the 38.2% fib is also like it's a golden pocket reversed, right? It's 61.8. Yeah, so 68.8 here. Whenever I got that. Where am I here? So we are getting above it. Oh no, we're stalling out right at the 38.2% fib. So yeah, we got to get above this 60.8 because these are the rejection zones from when you pull fibs on them. No, they don't always have to happen, but you can see this correlation here, 50 fib, and this channel of ascension, which we did break out of. But we get back in there. We'd probably ride the light fandango up there. Let's go to some bigger charts, see what's going on here. Oh yeah, this is the fun thing about, like, I got the 4-hour 24/7 chart going on a TV, so it stops me from getting into my phone, because once I go to check the price on the phone, I'm in the phone now, right? The eyes have been sucked in, so it takes me away from having to do that. Just look, oh, there it is. Oh, it's up. Oh, I just red or green, right? So I don't really look at the charts all weekend long, especially like the daily or the weekly. I just got the 4-hour, but it looks like we are respecting this channel of descensions. So I guess it's acting as support now. Next stop, oh yeah, looks like they got a lot of support here at this, what is it, 72.5 over here. We can get over here. What was this? 69.9, right? So the 69.9 is going to be resistance no matter what. We're going to hit our head on it. We'll see if that happens. I don't know, it's like 74.5 now is almost perfectly with this 50 moving average careening down on our aces. See, where are we in the bigger scope of thing? Now, look at the 200 moving average, 95. Wow, let's see how far we are from here and do some historic comparisons. We are 30% down from the 200 moving average. Now let's go way back. Way back. way back. What was the highest, the lowest we got here? Well, that was 30%. Let's see right here. 30%. Then we saw a little pump. 30%. 43%. And then this was probably the farthest we were away. 55%. 55% is how far underneath the 200 moving average we got in the past cycle. Now, everything is different because we have an invasive species on our ACE now. We attached it to the boat, and we took it over different waters. Now, let's see where would 50% take us? Our historic fall underneath the 200 moving average on the ding dong. 50 would take us to 47.2, which would actually be at this channel of descension that we've been in all this time. So that would make sense. That would see as much or as heavy an impact as the past bear cycle. I think that could be a potential a bottom. 49. Actually, it's not painful enough. I think it would have to maybe be 39. 49 would be the expectation. So what happens is that the expectation builds consensus, and everyone starts going, 49, yeah. Well, Samson Mao said it, yeah. Tom Lee said it, and everyone starts believing with these idiots, and then the max pain goes farther, right? And they're like, oh my God, 39. But it wasn't that Tom Lee and Samson Mao were wrong. They just had, their information was skewed. They're always right. Over on the weekly, rejected from the 38.2% fib all the way down. That is as much of a healthy rejection as you're going to see there. Look at that. Almost no candle body on her. Let's get a nicer look at that. Mike's World Comedy. I really don't think 49, 8. I think 62 was the expectations for a lot of morons. Yeah, we already went lower than 62. It's just not. You just got to ask yourself. Really, it's almost like you know what the market does. The market is gut wrenching, right? It gives as much pain as it can possibly deliver to get most people out, to convince you that everyone, all the doomsdayers were right. At 49, 50 is a psychological level, obviously, but that's why it'll break. These psychological levels aren't really great support. They're more like support porn. You know, you're hoping for it, and then it ultimately breaks. And then oh my God, it broke. I can't believe it broke. Like it has to give support. Now on this weekly chart, if we were to say by the end of this week get up to 70.1, which seems like a tall order these days, right? That would be a bullish engulfing candle that would have engulfed the past month. It would also probably put us on the monthly chart here with the green candle for sure. What is 71? Yeah. All we have to do is not go down past 66.8. Can you imagine that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I believe in 2011 we had 6 monthly red candles in a row. But those are high school miles. You know, we can't really judge, you know, the prom princess on what she did on prom night during the high school days, you know, even though you can. But 6 months of red won't be like this horrible thing that we've never seen. It's not a black swan. It's just something we've seen before, so it's not novel, right? Now, I kind of like this setup. I mean, as horrible as the world is right now, and maybe I'm just so delusionally bullish and filled with copium, with a side of hopium, but all the hijinks and calamity, especially geopolitical hijinks and calamity, always favors hard money, right? And if one thing's happened that I've noticed is that it's waking a lot of people up to, I shouldn't say a lot. That's where I'm getting copium, hopium, and delusionally bullish that it's waking a lot of people up. It's waking more people than I thought up. There's still the vast majority. It's the PRP, the Pareto retard principle. 80% are retards, 20% aren't. But even within that 20%, we start doing Ukrainian dolls, right? So in that 20%, 80% of that 20% is slightly more retarded than the 20%. And then in that small 20% of the 20%, 80% of that 20% is slightly more retarded than the little 20%. The Ukrainian dolls go back. So that's what we're dealing with. But I think people are opening their eyes to a lot of weird things, like things that we've been talking about and going through probably all our life. You know, how does the century of war, how does it correlate to the central banking system? And now it might be out of my pay grade to consider the concept of Bitcoin being anti-war, but it could be skewed with he who has the most. So if you have a little more Bitcoin, let's say in the future world, you can deploy a little bit of it into some sort of physical force. But it's a different type of seller's remorse, because once it's gone, it's gone. I think once it keeps it's almost like, you know, gun carriers in the States. It keeps people honest, you know. Every time I see a video on X of people getting into a fight in the States, I'm like, why would you get into a fight? That guy probably has a gun, right? Like, unless I'm just the dumbest Canuck ever, I just assume that everyone has a gun, or if they're not carrying, it's in the glove compartment. And then because the PRP, Pareto retard principle, 80% of them are retards, well, they're just going to grab a gun. Like, they're not going to risk getting punched out like the good old days. Remember when people would fight and then people would go, okay, it's over. And then the two people would get up and maybe, you know, grab yourself a beer. That was a different type of society back then. People were kind of more in it to win it. It was more like an equalization of sorts. Listen, we gotta make something straight here. Who's right? Who's wrong? We'll bring it to fisticuffs. Laserface 2030. Been dropping nuggets to my wife for about 3 or 4 years now, and I've come to the conclusion she has the "as long as you're in it, we're in it" attitude. And I'm like, but what if I die? You know what? That's an important question, because my dad has Bitcoin. He has an exposure to. Now, his wife doesn't know anything about it or really care, right? It's just like, oh, if you want to do this, then you do that, right? It's like, okay. And so you think about what would happen to you if you know, you got into a car accident today, God forbid, right? Do you have a concession plan for where's the seed phrase? What's the password? You know, there's a makes me think that there's probably a decent business idea, and I know there's probably one, but I don't trust any of them. You know, like, how do you properly prepare for an unforeseen circumstance? You know, it's like, you can't. My dilemma is that I've got my seed phrase in different places, but even the seed phrase is somewhat askewed, just in case someone, you know, someone in my family accidentally finds it where I've hid it in their place. But it's skewed, so it'd be useless. You know, only I know how to restore it to what it should be. So if something were to happen, it would essentially be lost. You know, not that I have any Bitcoin. I just have pick-a-pop bottles, right? Kelly McBride, this is why Texans are so polite. We are all armed. Yeah, it just keeps everyone super equal. And I think that's maybe the best case scenario for the eventual Bitcoin as a tool for peace. It's too valuable. It's too valuable. It holds the power within. So there doesn't have to necessarily be a display of power or a show of power. And then does it increase the haves and the have-nots? I think it will. I don't know if that'll ever change, because even like with the concept of UBI, which is probably in the next 2 years, it doesn't. Humans don't work like that. Humans don't work on an equal playing field. It's just not what we do. It's just not how we evolve, because we, even as men, if you take a population of men, you all give them $100, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. There's going to be people that can, game the system a little bit and do what they do, and they'll find other ways to climb the pecking order, right? The pecking order exists and will always exist, even amongst maybe families band together and they if UBI comes up, there's probably more things to worry about than the pecking order of humanity. But left to our own resources, we always just immediately knee-jerk back to the pecking order. It's how we reorganize. All right, let's get back. Let's find out what the hell's going on here. Squeaky McGee family finds seed phrase and says, "What's this gibberish?" He really was nuts and throws it away. Of course, in slow motion. Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting dilemma, because you spend so much time as a Bitcoiner in your own walled garden of secrecy, right? It's one of the aspects is, one of the advantages is one of the disadvantages. Well, I am the holder of my freedom and sovereignty, and I will hold that freedom and sovereignty right into the grave. You like and subscribe and share